a thing that you want people to take away from this conversation?
Um,
Welcome to the Better People podcast. I believe the fastest way to understanding is by listening.
I didn't come wanting anyone to like really take anything away or to change or um, to even think like I think. I think it's interesting. I've been to a couple of funerals in the last few weeks. Um, and yeah, because yeah, right. I don't go to
Right.
funerals, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
go to funerals.
Yeah.
Um, but I went and I'm looking at the community that the Black Church specifically, the community that Black Church creates amongst folks, and seeing like the power in that and the comfort in that, and like my wife's grandmother passed. She was, I would say, 94, and so you have like generations. They've been in this church and part of this broader church community for generations, and to see all of those people come together and kind of be like a participant observer of like what's happening and how people are connecting and like that's very very special.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that the faith beliefs or religion providing that level of community, it was beautiful. It was really really beautiful. um, and what made me wonder was the generation after us, because there's like my generation, and then there was like the generation under, and then there's a third generation. And my generation folks, most of the folks in the room, like aren't really consistently going to church, and the generation underneath them isn't. So I'm thinking like, what is their funeral experience going to be like when
Mm-hmm.
their parents pass away? And then it dawned on me like, oh, they're probably not going to need the same level of comfort because they're finding comfort in other ways. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just interesting to watch or so I say all that to say is I think that churches, faith systems provide a really beautiful space and community that it's different than anything else. Like, um, and it's special. It's very special.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not wanting like that's also like in my mind, like, man, disrupting that that's bad. Like, that's bad. Like if people walk away from their faiths, um, because they end up like me, and can no longer do the intellectual gymnastics to make it work. That's a bad thing. But then on the flip side, it's like I'm not sure it's needed. It's going to be needed in the same way that it has been needed in the past, um, or if we've just created a system that requires us to need it. Like, do we really need to like come together like and get closure in that way? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the funeral part. So I guess what I would want people to take away is to question everything, like question what you need, because you might think you need something that you don't, uh, which is a form of bondage.
Mention what happened at the funeral, I naturally just think that this is a community that was formed. When you talked about going to the military, that you became a part of a community. And even when you talked about being a wingman, like it was a small group, but it was a community, or when you went to the Church of Christ, I could hear throughout this whole thing that the thing that was so impactful for you was a community of people who were similar to you, so even when you, gained an understanding of the word. It was you were around people like that, and then you know. So I can see it consistently. And so one of the things I was going to say earlier was that I could hear how community is so important, period. I think it's the truth when you look at any group of people, that they are around like-minded individuals. And there's a lot of power in that. But I also think that when it becomes exclusive is when it becomes problematic. So even if I go to when I talk about the song, Republican people talking to Democratic people, like these groups are now closed. And either you are with us or you're not. And that's when it becomes um, difficult, damaging. Um, yeah, it becomes really hard, which leads me to this question. I thought about the scripture when it says that if you left, you were never with us. And so, what do you think about that? How true is that for you or about you? Or does it apply at all?
Yeah. I think I think there's also a lot of things in the book um, that are restricting to keep you. Um, the text like that, yeah. I think there's a lot of scripture or passages that are created to say like, hey, like if you stray away from this, then like it's all bad. As a matter of fact, like you're never with us. I think philosophically, um, I think I've always tried to be honest with my spirituality and my belief system. Uh, when I was preaching and teaching, like
I'm
I,
sorry. Again, these jokes is because of our relationship. I was like, yeah, because you was really true to being a wingman, but you had to go to church. Okay, I gotta go to Bible study. You had two things. You was faithful in both areas. Hold on a second.
um, yeah, I think I was really with y'all. I really was with y'all. 100. Like I think I was with y'all 100. Uh, yeah. So I think if I poetically look at that passage, I would say there might be some truth to it. That like deep down inside, this search for truth, uh, my allegiance was to truth and justice more so than it was to Christ or the beliefs. So I think like, yeah, so if I look at it poetically, like, yeah, I can see that being because, yeah, that my commitment was to truth and justice. And I think that's what my religion is right now.
Mm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
you talked about like community before, and you say like that seemed like it was important to me. Um, and I think, um,
Well, it sounded like it was a theme in some of the things, in
for
many of the
sure,
things that you were saying.
for sure. And I think that's where I was. And if you listen to kind of like as I'm listening, playing back, like the being affirmed,
Mm,
I think that was important
mhm,
um, to me. Like having a need to be affirmed, having a need to be accepted, to be liked. Um, which are all fine things. And I said earlier in this that I am extremely um, consumed about how people think about me and what people think about me and how they're taking me. I think I am now in a place where I can live in both extremes at the same time, where in every interaction, I am very, very concerned about what people think about me, how people are processing me. But at the same time, like, I don't give a fuck what people think about me. Um, because like
I'm
there's
sorry.
right. And I
I'm
try to
so
live,
sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
try to, I try to live in both of those extremes at the same time, all the time.
Yeah.
And I think, um, that allows, that allows me to be true and authentic, and that allows me to like speak up, uh, to fight against whatever ills are happening, and for me to object. And I, of course, I'm not saying I don't to where I just like I'll just crash out on folks, but because this is still true as well, and so being very strategic and calculated about how I move, whilst not giving right like
Not the whilst. It's two worlds. You just brought the two together.
yeah, and I think like I think that's part of my like my leadership spiel. I think like highly functional leaders, they do that off. They live in two extremes at the same time. Being extremely like humble and knowing like I don't know, like I don't know, I don't right. And then at the same time, like like I didn't just wake up yesterday, right? Like I read all the time. I'm always searching. You know, I'm not your average bear, right? And so being able to be extremely humble, but also like have some swagger about yourself at the same time, all the time. Um, I think, yeah.
Well, you know what, Johns? I think one of the questions that a couple of people have asked me who are on a deconstruction journey or who've even completed it, they've asked me, Sheree, I don't know how you can still believe in Jesus. Like legitimately asking me that, like,
Mhm.
like literally head turned to the side. And so I think people who are in the process of assessing things and deconstructing, many people are coming to that question and answering it or not. And then what I found interesting in many of the conversations is how 2016 played a huge part in the beginning of the deconstruction for people. What I like about you communicating who you are and as authentically as you have. And I really appreciate you entrusting me with this information in a sense. I mean, because everybody about to know now. But when I first became a Christian, authenticity was the biggest thing. I really thought that I came into a space where I could truly be myself. I thought, oh, we can be authentically, we can talk about what we've done authentically and openly. But, I soon found out that it wasn't really trying to be. It was like, you doing way too much. But anyway, needless to say, I'm always drawn to authenticity. And I think it's important for you to not put on masks, in order for you to complete your journey or to get wherever it is you're going, you have to be honest. You got to be open. You have to be authentic, not only with yourself, but with others. And so I really do value that. And I do appreciate this. Now, I do want to tell you, I'm hoping that we're going to have way more discussions than this. Um, I love the fact that I'm beginning this podcast with a provocateur.
It is.
In certain realms. And like I told you,
Yeah.
my introduction, my introduction was the revolution is about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. I think
Yeah, yeah,
uh
yeah.
definitely I thought that was, although I do think we picked the right guy, but I gotta put a Kendrick Lamar thing in there. I have to. He
I
got his
love it.
so I do appreciate this. I do want to say also that I'm obviously going to have some people on here who are in a completely different place than this, and that people will have an opportunity to listen to another side of this. And I just want to encourage those who are here to listen. That listening, like I said, is the quickest way to understanding. And although the way I've been raised in the faith is to be right, that I have to be right, when in fact I think the scripture is clear, is that when it says, in all you're getting, get understanding. And so I hope that these type of conversations produce that. Um, I know you got strong shoulders, Jones, and you got a backbone, and so I suspect that there's going to be many conversations that are going to come your way because of this, and because of that, I do appreciate it. And maybe some of the questions that people will pose here, maybe we can come back and answer some of those.
For sure, for sure. Like I said earlier, I'm a yapper. And I think that's why, like, you and I, like, you're a yapper too. And
No one can
so
tell. They can't tell over here. I'm gonna have to have you interview me.
that, yeah, right, yeah. I'm a certified yapper, so I know I monopolize a lot of the time, but I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So
Absolutely,
yeah, yeah.
100%. That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
But I do want to say, like, there was a time when I was like, man, and of course, like, I don't, who can I have this conversation with, right? Like, my wife and I, like, we have these conversations. My wife, who's on a similar journey, not on the exact journey, and she's in the exact same place that I'm in, but she was on a similar journey as we were kind of talking through this. And I think I don't look at folks even after this conversation and say, like, man, how can you still be a Christian with this, and this? I think like, everybody's on their own journey, and we're all at different places. And I even think about even when I'm having, like, political conversations, uh, depending on how those conversations have gone, I think there's a certain level of compassion, because I think like, there was a time when like, I was Candace Owens, like, like, that was me. Like,
Yeah.
if you would have called me at a certain time in my life, like, I would have sounded just like Candace Owens. You would call me at a different time in my life, like, I probably would have sounded like Barack, Bernie. Now I'm way out there now, and I think
What you sounding like now?
uh, that's another conversation. That's a whole
Okay.
other conversation. That's a whole
Okay.
other
Okay.
political conversation that I would love to engage in. But I still have to say is, like, having, like, compassion, right? Like, I can see, someone who sounds like Candace Owens be like, yeah, that was me. Um, and my conversation might help them move you know, from Candace to Barack, in their own time. And maybe they don't. Maybe they just live as Candace. Because even as Candace Owens, like, I was doing good work. I was still, like, pouring into people. And I think starting with positive assumptions around everybody I come in contact with, like, hey, everybody has good intentions. And even if they're on some, like, they might be doing good work. So even when I come and be like, that the God of the scripture is ridiculous, and both Old and New Testaments, Ananias and Sapphira, what they held back part of their stuff. What, like, that's the same dude, like, like, right? Like, man, the Holy Spirit smut them down for telling a little mistruth. Like, that's not, punishment and
They was
crime.
just being mischievous.
It's been a little mischievous, you know what I mean? Like, that's New Testament. That's New Testament God, right? But I can't, like, I can speak and say my truth about how wild, that dude is. And someone else can say, no, like, that dude loves me and I love that dude with everything in my being. And that's okay. And they're not crazy and they're not irrational. And hopefully I'm not crazy or irrational. Hopefully. I wonder sometimes. but but yeah, and I think that's the spirit of what you're saying right now with listening. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
I
have
think
those.
it's I think for me, I really had to come off of I'm right, and it took a long time to do that. And, you know, I remember when interestingly enough, it was 2016 and it didn't have anything, this part didn't have anything to do with this moment, but I was having a conversation with a Catholic, and they were presenting to me their arguments for why Catholicism was superior to Protestantism. And obviously, I was a part of the Protestant movement, although the Church of Christ isn't really a part of the Protestant movement, really isn't a part of it. But I've been taught in that way, and so we're debating back and forth about this, and they were giving me tracts and informations and ideologies and thoughts and everything about what it was that they believed and why they believed it was only right for me to do this. Then I drove back to San Diego with all of this in my head, and I realized we're arguing. We both believe that Jesus is the Christ, and we're arguing against each other. And I'm not a person who gets depressed, but I was depressed when I got home because at that moment, too, I remember Googling how many different sects of Christianity existed. And at that point, Google told me 50,000 in America alone, uh, of Christianity, sects of Christianity. And about 27,000 of them or so was in the Protestant movement or something like that. I don't remember the
Mhm.
particulars on it, but I remember being depressed because I thought all these years I've been communicating to people that, there's 50,000, if there's 50,000 different ones, that God is saying 49,999 are wrong. This one right here, this is the right one. And that was, it was ground shaking and heart shattering. And I really had to sit with that. And so from that place, I've been in more of a trying to seek to understand and learning that listening is causing that, will cause that. And so again, I love the idea that the beginning of better people is starting with the authentic Felix Jones. I love that.
Hey,
So,
honored to be here. Honored to be here. And yeah, yeah. My question to you is, um, hey, am I going to hell, Oshri?
that's your question to me. That's your question to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Jones, I when my heart was shattered and that ground was shaken up, I understood with all certainty that I am not the one to determine that for you.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, as a former math teacher, one of the things I'd always do is like brain exercises, is estimation and prediction, right?
Okay.
So I must quit messing with you. I'm messing around.
So let me ask you this one last question and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
If you could ask your former self one question or offer them one truth, what would it be contextually?
My former self, which one?
Whichever one pops up, whoever, I don't want to pick them. If you could ask your former self one question or offer them one truth, what would it be?
The truth I would offer the 17-year-old would be it's 100% okay to say what you're thinking
Mhm.
because I think it's taken me a long time to, I've always felt like, and I think, uh, growing up in proximity to whiteness, we're conditioned and trained to make sure you say the right thing, make sure you show up the right way. And so I think I've always been conditioned to like not say what I'm thinking, to like process it and take it through like a bunch of different filters before it comes out, or to decide if it's even going to come out. And so in not saying what I'm thinking oftentimes, and holding it in, I allowed myself to be molded sometimes. When I look at my time as an assistant minister, I think I was molded into what I thought or what we thought the congregation needed at that time. And so I was a version of myself that wasn't as authentic as it could have been. And I think I could have been more helpful throughout my life if I would have, not been so fixated and focused on like making sure stuff comes out right.
Yeah. 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 Because I was what you said made me think to ask you, how would you be different, and you would be a different, how is that person that you would have been different than who you are right now? If you understand what I'm saying, like if you
I would have gotten here. I just would have gotten here faster.
there, got it.
Yeah, and I think I would have been more helpful because there's oftentimes like things happen and you see things and like I think that's where you and I differ in some spaces where you've always seemed to have the courage, and I don't want to say like I was cowardly. I think I was overly strategic, where you were like, this doesn't make sense. Like, what the heck's going on? And that was problematic for you, at times. And I think if I would have been able to say it, say like, oh, this doesn't make sense, or like, why is this happening, or what, like, oh, this is backwards, instead of like just kind of like assimilating or morphing into something that I thought was needed, at the time. And I think that's similar to like what's happening right now, like with me coming out. Like, why haven't I just said what I was thinking? Because like I'm thinking, oh, that's not what's needed. Why did I like kind of divorce myself from this community that I've been a part of for over 2 decades and just be like, no, I'm gonna like just like separate myself from this community of people who I love and who love me. And I'm doing it because I don't want to cause harm, because like I don't want to like misguide people. I don't want to be a hindrance to people on their walk. And so I just left.
I sent you a video the other day, with Will Smith saying he wanted to return to music. Did you get a chance to see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So he said what Jay said to him, and then he said what Kendrick said to him. I felt like maybe that might resonate with you a bit.
I made 2 phone calls. I talked to Jay and I talked to Kendrick, and I was like, hey, I want to get back in music. And it was like, what's the advice? And Jay said, like, don't fake your story. He was like, you gotta say what's true for you. And he said, you'll be looking at the younger rappers and you want that to be true for you, but you don't live like that. It was like, be true to your story. Tell your story. And that's where I got the based on a true story from Jay. And Kendrick, he paused. He said, man, just say that you always been scared to say. And it was like the same thing. Yes, basically the same thing. And it was like, be honest. Be honest. And it was like, that was, it was scary, right? To like, just like say, right? And that's the thing with genre. Make the record you want to make. Don't.
Did it?
For sure. 100%. And I think, when I'm talking about living on those 2 extremes, I think, and I'm probably not as extreme as I'm going to be. But I think I'm at a place where, I can just like be true and say like, yeah, this is what it is. This is what I think. Um,
Mhm.
and I think, but the conditioning of being diplomatic and strategic and calculated in just in life, especially in the professional world, I think that's still there. Just like
How
all
it's
the other.
going to impact your professional world?
It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
not. I think there's always been like when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be the president of the United States. Um, and it didn't take long to like come up off of that. Like once I was like 7 or 8, third
I
grade.
had the jokes are coming because you mentioned Barack Obama, so naturally I put Trump over here. So my question was, which one was you gonna be? Was you gonna be Trump or was you gonna be Obama?
I don't know. I just know everybody was talking about this Jimmy Carter guy and how much he sucked. And so I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
like
Got
I'll
it.
do that. I'll be that job because that guy sucked. And again, that's just what I was hearing, right? And
Yes.
not no shade on Jimmy Carter. I think he did
Sure.
some great things and probably was, and not probably he was a good dude and a pretty good president. But and so that's always been in the back of my head, like one day to go into politics. And so I think, you lose the Christians like, man, this dude's antichrist, right? So it might affect that, but again, I don't even know if that's ever even in the cards. But there's always this, like, this itch of going into the political realm. So,
Mm.
but
Hmm.
other than that, no, I don't think it's going to affect my career at all.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Well, I guess it takes. So I was thinking, like, man, like I think I could have been. I think I could have been a mega church preacher. Um, I think I could have been. I think I
okay.
could have. Because again, like again, like I'm a pretty dope skill set. I got a pretty cold mouthpiece, right? But what I'm saying, I could have done that within the Church of Christ, but I could have been like non-denominational mega preacher. I probably made a lot of money doing it. So I guess that's off the table now.
I wonder if it would have locked you in. I wonder if you would have been stuck then, would you have been locked into that praise? Because we talked about how that was such an important part and would it have caused you to stay? And it would have leaned in a bit to the influence that you would have had in a political space too. Not saying that that would have been political, but it would have given you the influence to, or the power to influence people, should I say, which is the, politics. And so that would have been a very interesting thing. I know many people try to talk you into it. You pushed against it. So it is off the table. It is absolutely off the table. Well, you know what, John? I really
I don't know.
appreciate.
I don't know that story though. That redemption story.
Talk to me.
Sure. I'm saying if like what better story is there than a guy who left the faith was anti scripture, anti all of that, um, to only be redeemed on the backside of that, right? To rise the ashes of faith, right? To the glory of I mean that story is cold. That's
Yeah,
a
I
cold
think I've,
story.
I've heard a story in there similar. Paul's story was similar to that, a little bit, you know,
A little bit,
a
but
little bit.
yeah. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like the formula is there.
Listen, maybe this is the journey that's bringing you front and center for people to come and rescue you.
Yeah,
Thank you for engaging the Better People podcast, where we believe that your fastest way, your quickest way to understanding is by listening.